Namaste. Good morning. Welcome once again to another round of Dekho Apna Desh webinar series. And today we are taking you to a place which is very, very familiar, not just to all of us in India and to the Indians, but to world at large. And that's where all our questions started coming in when we sent out the flyers for today's webinar. And when we said we are taking you to Agra to see the Taj. And so the questions were, do you really still need to talk about Taj? No, 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 not at all. But we still don't mind revisiting Taj, right? But then the team today is going to bring you much more than just going to the Taj. For most of us, going to Agra has been associated that we should go to Taj, at most to Fatehpur Sikri, and then come back to Delhi. Well, today we are going to explore so many more layers that are there to Agra. And that's going to include food, that's going to include crafts, that's going to include the marble inlay work. So the flyer that went out very consciously did not display the Taj because we all know about Taj. So we want to showcase Zardozi, maybe Petha, Dalmot, and so much. Am I revealing too much? Well, let me not. Introducing to all of you people who have been on our platform and they are there with us yet again. Nidhi Bansal, welcome Nidhi. Dr.
Thank
Shomi
you, ma'am.
Roy, Shravan, and today joining us, and we are very, very happy to have a very young guide with us, Gaurav Garg. Gaurav is all of 34 years, and he says out of those 34, he's lived 30 years in Agra. So clearly his heart beats for Agra. And we are so happy to have him with us because when you go next to Agra, you know who to walk the lanes with. So welcome all of you, and let's go walking in the Taj.
Thank
Shall
you
we?
so much, ma'am. Thank
Okay.
you.
Nidhi, are you going to start?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you. I would like to start by congratulating the entire team of Ministry of Tourism for the Dekho Apna Desh series. And it has been a privilege to be the opening team for this wonderful initiative. Yet again, I thank DG ma'am and ADG ma'am for giving us today's platform to showcase another beautiful facet of our tourism destination. The city of Agra is well known to the world. One of the universally admired masterpieces rests here. Nearly 7 million visitors a year come to see it, but the city is more than the magnum opus called Taj Mahal. But before I get into the city, I would like to acknowledge that the tourism industry was probably the first ones to close down and probably the last to open. All other industries are making a comeback, and we also need to put our best foot forward and take time in our stride. We create digital tourism products to connect locals and give them the opportunity to showcase their city like no one else. This makes the mainstream more inclusive with innovative campaigns for cultural heritage tourism engagement. Keeping this in mind, today's webinar on Agra is a step closer to revival, a sense of celebration for our comeback through the India City Walks Festival, an initiative to support our people who have been there, the pillars on ground of walks, experiences, deliveries across the country. The vision of the festival is to create a pool of socially and culturally aware people who are passionate locals, professionals who have the desire to showcase their heritage, neighborhoods, city to the residents and to the travelers, but yet face a challenge to find a platform to pursue their interests. The India City Walks Festival welcomes all and everyone to join this initiative. To participate, we request you to check the details on the Facebook page of India City Walks Festival. Please participate and support tourism revival. Our value proposition is to create a relation between history, culture, interest, skills to bring awareness to all. All of this ensures the future of local experiences for everyone's direct benefit. Without taking much time, I will now like to begin today's session. Today, we will end by saying Bahataj, but we will begin by exploring the lesser known facets of this historic city. Agra is located approximately 220 kilometers away from Delhi. Agra is one of the most visited destinations in the touristic map of our country. The city is well connected by rail, road, and airstrip. a private airstrip. A part of the Golden Triangle, Agra has many facets that are not explored in a day's tour. This beautiful city not only has the grandeur of Mughal architecture, but equally boasts of our Indian culture and remnants of the colonial legacy. Over to my colleague, Gaurav, to take us through the lesser known monuments and areas of Agra.
Thank you. Now it's time to explore the hidden gems of Agra or Agra beyond Taj. Now, on your screen is a snapshot of the places that we will cover as a part of the trail. The city of Agra has much more to offer than just the highlights. Let us begin our journey with our first gem, Gyara Sidi. Gyara Sidi literally translates to 11 steps and located on the bank of river Yamuna. It was built by Humayun. Gyara Sidi is an astronomical observatory which fueled the hobby of Humayun. Today, only a part of the structure remains. It is carved out from a single piece of stone. Moving from this Gyara Sidi, we have our second hidden gem, Humayun Mosque. This structure was constructed when the emperor ascended the throne in 1530 in Agra Fort. The mosque has 5 domes and some beautiful carved graves in the same complex. It is a functional mosque and has brick mortar plastered walls. After our first destination, we are now moving towards Jama Masjid or Jami Masjid, literally meaning the Friday Mosque. It is yet another beautiful structure built by Shah Jahan in the honor of his eldest daughter, Jahanara, in 1648. It took 6 years with 5,000 artisans to construct. One can easily identify the advancement in the architecture and the difference in the uses of white Makarana marble and the red sandstone. From here, it is now time to explore the iconic gardens of Agra, namely Rambagh and Mehtab Bagh. Rambagh is one of the oldest gardens of Agra, built as the first garden on the bank of river Yamuna in 1528. After his death, initially he was buried in his garden, but later his remains were shifted to Kabul in his final resting place. Nur Jahan, the Mughal empresses, also renovated it by adding many structures to it. The garden came in the control of Marathas also during the 18th century. This was then the garden got its name Rambagh. Prior to that, the garden was called as Arambagh or the Garden of Rest. One of the stories behind the name of Arambagh is that once Emperor Akbar fell in love with the gardener of this garden, but she refused to marry him, and thus he stayed in the garden for 6 days, doing literally nothing, just resting, until she accepted to marry him. Some people believe that this is why the garden is called Arambagh. True or not, the story really interesting. This garden has a Charbagh concept also, which relates it to the Garden of Paradise. From one garden, we are now moving to another beautiful garden, which is my favorite place also, is known as Mehtab Bagh. Mehtab Bagh means moonlit garden. Originally was built by Emperor Babur as the last out of 11 gardens laid by him on the east bank of river Yamuna. Once this garden was drowned in the flood, but was again restored to its former glory in 1996 by the ASI department. Legends also says that it is the same place where Shah Jahan wanted to erect another mausoleum in black marble for himself and wanted to connect both white and black one with a silver bridge. Nevertheless, this story does not hold much ground, but this is one of the best places to get some stunning views of the Taj Mahal, especially in sunrise and at the sunset. And soon, hopefully, it will be also allowed to visit this garden on full moon nights to have a beautiful view of milky white color of Taj Mahal. Moving ahead, we are now going to a place which has a very interesting name, Chini Ka Roza. Chini Ka Roza is a tomb of Afzal Khan Shirazi, who was a great scholar, poet, and a prime minister in the court of Shah Jahan. It was built in 1635 by Shah Jahan. This tomb has a marvelous fusion of Indo-Persian style. It is the first monument of its kind to be decorated with a glazed style work known as Chini. And this is how the name of the monument derived, Chini Ka Roza. The tiles for the mausoleum are known to have been imported from China, which makes the monument even more striking with their color and artwork. Chini Ka Roza is a fantastic example of a long gone style and architecture. Our next destination is Tomb of Maryam Uz-Zamani. It's a tomb of Akbar's favorite wife. Her real name was Jodhabai. Yes, she is the same Jodhabai of Bollywood movie Jodha Akbar. She was married to Akbar in 1562. She was honored with the title of Mariam-uz-Zamani, means Mary of the Age, after she gave birth to Jahangir. She died in Agra in 1623, and her son Jahangir built a tomb for her from 1623 to 27, which is just a kilometer from the tomb of her husband Akbar. So if you are visiting Akbar's tomb, one must visit also Mariam's tomb. From here, we will reach to our next leg of the trail with very famous Mankameshwar temple. The temple is one of the very famous religious places and is devoted to Lord Shiva. The temple roots can be traced back to the rich mythology of the country. According to the legend, after Lord Krishna's birth in Mathura, Lord Shiva wished to have a child's vision. And then Lord Shiva spent one night here, did his spiritual practice. He pledged that if he could feed Kahana in his lap, then Lord Shiva would be seated in this Shivalinga at this place. When Lord Shiva went to his house to see Kanaji, Yashoda Maya was frightened to see his ashes and Jatadhari form. And Yashoda Maya thought that Kana would be scared to see him. Lord Shiva sat there meditating under a banyan tree. Then Kanaji started playing Leela and weeping and started pointing towards Shiva. And Yashoda Mai called Shivji and gave Kana in his lap, and then Kanaji went silent. Since then, the Lord Shiva is seated in the Shivalinga in this temple. It is believed that just as Lord Shiva has fulfilled the desire, in the same way, the wishes of every devotee who come here with true mind will be fulfilled. With the blessings of Lord Shiva now, from here we move on to the markets of the city, namely Rawatpada, Seth Gali, Johari Bazaar. Apart from being an iconic tourist destination, the city is also famous for its handicrafts and markets. The city houses one of the largest markets for textile and embroidery. Variety of markets have a lot to offer. Rawatpada is one of the oldest localities in the city. Today, the area is bustling spice market and surely can be labeled as a hidden gem of Agra for tourists. The vibrant market scenes leave a distinct impression as compared to the historical sites, one that is full of colors, fragrant, noises, and life. Now talking about the Seth Gali. Seth Gali is a lane with many sweet shops, and most of the shops are more than 100 years old. And the owner of these shops are from the merchant class, also called Seths. And after them, this lane is called Seth Gali. And these Seths, they live in the houses built either behind or at the top of these shops. These owners were so rich during the British rule that they used to lend money to the Britishers also. And for their own safety, they were having bouncers or pehelwan with them. And for their practices, they made wrestling ring on the terrace of their houses. In this photo, a haveli or mansion with more than 200 rooms can be seen, and a akhada or a wrestling ring can be seen, which shows the royalty of these people. Other famous market of the city are Johari Bazaar, which is a market famous for jewelry, Lohar Gali, Subhash Bazaar, Namak Ki Mandi, Kinari Bazaar, Shahganj Market, Sadar Bazaar, and many more. And each of these places has a history attached with it. So please come and explore the unexplored lanes and by lanes from your own eyes. Now it's a time that we move in time from the medieval history to modern history and see how colonial power has left their impressions on the city on our second trail in the segment of Agra Beyond Taj. Over to Dr. Roy for the second trail.
It would be right to say that Agra is the melting pot of two dominant eras of Indian history, the medieval and the modern times. While we just saw the glimpses of the lesser known medieval sites of Agra, let us now move to the colonial period. What you will experience now is a contrasting image, with innumerous churches and other architectural marvels influenced by the European styles. It would take you almost a day to explore this hidden chapter from Agra's history. We begin our experience with our first pit stop, that is St. George's Cathedral. This former British Raj Protestant church is located in the cantonment area of Agra. The cathedral was one of the main places of worship for the Anglicans back during the British rule in India and continues to draw the population in nearby areas along with a lot of tourists. It was designed and constructed by Major General and Engineer G.T. Boileau in 1829 in a typical English Gothic style of architecture. Inside the cathedral, there are various commemorations to non-commissioned and commissioned officers, also to the battalion of this East Array Regiment soldiers who died in the battles, or many who were, who died while serving in India. The interior of this cathedral has a central nave and the side aisles with 6 iconic columns carrying a slightly vaulted roof. The altar is adorned with marble inlay work. It is a beautiful sight and requires attention and appreciation from all of us. Moving ahead, we are now heading to yet another pit stop called the Havelock Memorial Church. The name is famous, right? As one of our islands in Andaman and Nicobar was initially named after Sir Havelock. Now, of course, it's called the Swaraj Deep. So here we are, the Havelock Memorial Church, which is yet again located in the Army Cantonment area of Agra. The Havelock Chapel is an old and historic building that was built in classical style through public subscription. It was named after, like I mentioned, Sir Henry Havelock, as he took the initiative and built the first ever Baptist chapel in Agra in 1832. Considered as one of the most complete chapel, a sum of almost 12,000 rupees was spent on building and procuring its furnitures. The purpose of this chapel, of course, was to serve the English soldiers and others who needed the church services. That is also one of the reasons why this chapel has a large reading room and library. Back then, it was used by the soldiers of nearby garrison, and of course, it is now just a huge space rendered under the church. As we mentioned in the beginning, there are innumerous churches, so how can we stop now? We are now moving to yet another destination, which is the St. Mary's Church. St. Mary's Church came into existence in April 1923 as a gift from a very well-known family in Agra called the John family. This was built in the memory of Mrs. Mary John. They also donated an adjoining compound with a large bungalow in it for the maintenance of the church. The foundation stone of this church was laid back in 1920, and upon its completion, it was blessed by the Archbishop on April 5th, 1923. With this, it is now time to explore the Red Taj Mahal. Yes, you heard it right. I called out the name Red Taj Mahal, or known as the Roman Catholic Cemetery. Built in red sandstone in 1853, it is one of the oldest Christian burial ground in North India. Yes, what you see on your screen is a burial ground, and it is called the Red Taj Mahal. Emperor Jahangir actually had granted land for this, and nowadays it is taken and protected by ASI. It has graves from the earliest Armenian, Portuguese travelers, ambassadors, astronomers, Jesuits, and artists who traveled to Agra during the reign of Akbar. However, most of the tombs were designed in the Mughal style, because of which it was given the name of Red Taj Mahal. Main tomb, of course, belongs to John Hessing, the European who joined the Maratha forces. Yet another famous tomb is of Walter Reinhardt, the husband of the famous Begum Samru from Delhi. If you are coming to Old Delhi, you get to see the State Bank of India. That was Begum Samru's palace, and that's where the connection of Walter Reinhardt comes through. Let us now move to witness a syncretic tradition in Agra under the reign of none other than Akbar. That is the Akbar Church. Built in 1598, this is a combined legacy of Mughal and British period. As large number of communities of Armenian Christians, they had close contact with Akbar, they once expressed their desire to have a church built. Then Akbar, of course, not only agreed to it, but also gave grants to build it. The name of the church may raise questions in the mind of many to say why a Christian prayer house bears the name of a great Mughal ruler. Considering the fact that Akbar was secular and he had secular credentials, his liberal attitude towards other religions, the church was unanimously named after him. We are now moving to yet another cathedral, which really beholds the beauty of the bygone era. Cathedral of Immaculate Conception. Established back in 1848, this bright church building with its regal facade was designed by Reverend Bonaventure, an Italian architect. Though the church sustained a lot of damage during the freedom struggle of 1857, it has been restored to its former glory. thus definitely makes a destination that one must visit when in Agra. We have now come to St. John's College. This college was established in 1850 by Church Missionary Society of England. The St. John's College is one of the most beautiful buildings in North India, built in red sandstone in the Indo-Saracenic style of architecture. Last but not the least, our final pit stop for the Colonial Trail in Agra is the Thomson Hospital, or called the Sarojini Naidu Medical College and Hospital. SN Medical College itself is honored with the prestige of being one of the first 3 medical schools of our country, being established in the year 1854 during the reign of the British Empire. The history of this institute runs parallel with the evolution and development of medical education in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Lieutenant Governor Sir James Thomson was the founder of this school, who laid the foundation stone. It was then named after him, and the main objective of this establishment was to produce medical assistants and train the doctors for the working in the Indian Army. The East India Company first made the plans of the school, and the maintenance cost was also borne by them. The first batch of Indian doctors passed out from the medical school in 1857, when our country, our nation, India, was vigorously engaged in the struggle of freedom. With this, we conclude the section on the Colonial Trail and the lesser known aspect of the hidden gems of Agra. From here, I now request my colleague Shravan to take us through the food experience in the beautiful city of Agra. Over to you, Shravan.
I am sure you all are tired of walking and exploring the hidden gems. This segment is all about food of Agra. The last 2 trails have made it evident that the city is blessed with rich culture and heritage. But it is not restricted to its history and beautiful architecture marvels. It rather translates into its food. The food in Agra has a variety of Mughlai delicacies, but there are tasty chaats, spicy dal moats, chilas, tikki, kachori, and the very famous pethas all over the streets of Agra, awaiting to be explored. So let's begin the journey through some of the famous food items of Agra. Many cities are known for their special food items, like Mathura ke pede, Mysore for Mysore pak, Lucknow ke kebabs. Agra is known for its pethas. It is the iconic dish hailing from the city. Petha comes in wide variety, right from pan, anguri, kesari, and many others. Petha is prepared from white pumpkin or ash cod. The process starts from cutting and removing the peel. Then it is pricked to make small holes, and then they are soaked in quick lime and kept overnight. The following morning, the gourd is cooked with alum for a few minutes, then it is strained and added to sugar syrup. Some of the famous joints where you can enjoy the petha would be Gopaldas Petha in Subhash Bazar and Munna Lal Pethewal. From one specialty food item to another, we have dal moat on our list. It is a tongue-teasing savory item of Agra that can be eaten just like that or alongside petha. The crunch of dal moat enhances the sweetness of petha. It is a dry snack made with spicy fried lentils and loads of nuts and raisins. The famous joint is Panchi Petha in Sadar Bazaar. Panchi Petha, the most famous brand in Agra, where you can relish petha and dal moat. So next time you are in Agra, ensure that while you admire the beauty and splendor of the city, you also take pleasure in tasting petha and dal moat. We move on to the breakfast food dish of the city, bedai, or popularly known as bedmi puri in other parts of the country. Bedmi puri and moong dal halwa. The whole dish is a combination of puris, deep fried bread with lentils, served with potato curry, pumpkin, and a little bit of curd. Both preparations are made in clarified butter, which is ghee. It is a combination of savory and sweet. To relish the breakfast preparation, you can visit Namak Mandi Fata. The next stop for us will be Kala Mandir for another speciality of the locality, which is Dal Pakwan. With a diverse country like ours, we have different religions and communities along with their delicacies. When we talk about Dal Pakwan, it comes from the Sindhi community. It is basically a light mix of spiced yellow lentils served with deliciously crisp and thick deep fried bread. Crispy pakwan, earthy creamy dal, sweet spicy chutneys, chopped onions creates a beautiful contrast of textures and flavors. The next staple food item on the list is puri sabzi. It comes from a shop that is approximately 150 years old. Since the inception, they have been serving puri sabzi with same love and taste. They serve puris, which are deep fried breads, with different condiments like potatoes, chickpeas, cottage cheese, mint and coriander sauce, and many others. The famous joint for puri sabzi in Agra would be Chiman Lal Puriwal. Now, from the breakfast traditions, we are moving towards the exciting chaat section on the city's menu card. If you are a chaat lover, then Agra has options and joints that are famous for hardcore street food. Pani puri, tikki, dahi bhalla, and many others. They serve two types of pani puri. One is made up of semolina, another is made up of lentils. The preparation of tikki is done on clarified butter, which is ghee. Sri Ram Chaat Bhandar is one of the most famous joint of the city. From our vegetarian segments, we now move to the non-vegetarians offering of the city. Our next food delicacy on the list is nihari, which originates from a word nihar, meaning morning. It is a stew consisting of slow cooked meat, either chicken or lamb, along with bone marrow. The buttery and spicy nihari is left to slow cook overnight when the meat melts down completely to merge with the texture of the stew. It is often topped with ginger juliennes, chopped coriander leaves, green chilies, and ghee. Nihari is best enjoyed with khamiri roti. From one non-vegetarian delicacy to another. Halim, originally an Arabic dish made with meat, ghee, wheat, rice, and whole pulses. Halim is traditionally prepared in bhattis or brick mud ovens. During the holy month of Ramadan, it is again a slow-cooked delicacy, often cooked for 7 to 8 hours, and it is done on firewood. You can visit Kashmiri market in Agra to taste this delicacy. We have reached the final leg of the food trail, that is korma. It is also known as ashkorma or kuverma. Korma literally means braising the meat. Here, the meat is braised in oil. Traditionally, it was desi ghee, yogurt, and spices. Then simmered in water till it gets tender, and finely ground nuts were also used as thickening agents. The flavor of korma is based on mixture of spices, including ground coriander and cumin, combined with yogurt, which is usually incorporated slowly and carefully with the meat juices. The non-veg trail is incomplete if we don't talk of biryani. So we have for you mutton biryani and stew. Hing Mandi is the famous area for mutton stew and biryani. The stew is made in clarified butter. Mutton stew is a very common recipe. Probably every non-vegetarian household has its own recipe. It uses basic Indian ingredients and it is easy to put together. Mughlai mutton stew recipe is a royal recipe that has a blend of fine flavors brewed with mutton and spices. They all put ground spices, makhana, red chili, green chili, and a lot of ghee. You can relish this delicacy with rotis. We hope that the city of Agra was able to satiate your appetite. For the next segment of Agra, Taj, and beyond, over to Gaurav.
Thank you. Now we will talk about the art and crafts of Agra. Let us begin with the most unique crafts of the city, the Pachikari, or popularly known as the marble inlay art. The art of inlaying of colorful gemstones in the marble is called marble inlay art. We can see this artwork in many monuments across India. This artwork was even known before the medieval times, but was flourished during the reign of Shah Jahan. It is said that the artisans who are still involved in this art are the direct descendants of the artisans who worked on the Taj Mahal and trying to keep this art alive. The step-wise process is very complex, but I will try to explain it simply. In this art, first they take a piece of white marble and paint it with any temporary contrast watercolor. Then, with the help of pointed tool, they draw the outline on the piece. And because of contrast color, it is visible easy. Because on white stone, if we draw white lines, will be difficult to see. Then, with the help of another tool, which has a flat tip, they chisel the marble and make cavities in it. Another artisans shape the semi-precious stones with the help of emery powder wheel, one by one according to the design, and placed it on the top of that chiseled marble. If it looks good, they remove the stones and fill the cavities with a special natural glue and place the shaped stones pieces on it and fix them. Once the stones are fixed, they are fixed forever. They never comes out. They are polished and with the sandpaper or sand. In this way, the temporary color goes off and the piece becomes very smooth and shiny and looks very beautiful. This is the exact process what they are using since many generations. After the inlay art, it's time to explore the beautiful world of Zardosi. Zardosi is a hand embroidery art which is also very famous in Agra. Zar means gold and dosi means embroidery. Embroidery done with the gold strings is called Zardosi. Zardosi has been in existence in India from the time of Rig Veda. There are numerous instances mentioning the use of Zar embroidery as ornamentation on the attire of gods and goddesses. During the medieval period, it was used to embellish the attire of kings and the royals in India, also by studying some precious stones on it. But nowadays, not everyone can enjoy the same royalty. So artisans perform this art on tapestries for wall hanging and also on ladies' bags and clutches, which gives a traditional and royal look to them. The credit to revive this art in Agra goes to Sheikh Shamsuddin and Fazal Muhammadji. Both of them have been awarded with a Padam Shri Award. And the fame and glory of Shamsuddinji can be understood with this, that he was been invited 4 times to White House in different years. Places where one can still avail the opportunity to admire the masterpieces made by them are Kohinoor and Ganeshilal Emporium, where many pieces are kept in their private gallery, which took more than 20 to 30 years to finish, and they are not for sale. Though one can buy the smaller items which are for sale. Yet another lesser known fact about Agra is the treasure of good leatherwork, especially of shoes. Said by a local shoemaker that almost every 5th pair of shoes in the world is made in Agra. The shoemaking industry is another feather on its cap. The history of shoemakers of Agra is indeed an interesting one. Agra is in the medieval period was one of the most important centers of trade and commerce, just like Delhi, Srinagar and Lahore. The rulers of Agra back then were fond of food and a long heritage of cuisines. It was no surprise that they sourced ingredients from far-off places. For example, hing, asafoetida, was imported from Afghanistan and Iran, packed in leather containers called mushaks. And these mushaks were discarded once their purpose was served. The craftsmen of Agra soon realized that these leather bags could be reused for making footwear. Thus began the footwear industry in Agra. Even today, one of the main markets for footwear in the city goes by the name Hing Ki Mandi, with over 5,000 shops there. Shoemaking was prosperous industry under the Mughals and continued to thrive during the British period. They also started making footwear for the British Army. Under the British rule, there were also increase in demands for other items such as bags, belts, buttons, and suitcases. Over time, with the initiatives by government and private companies and footwear exposed both in India and abroad, the industry could bounce back to an extent. Today, the collection of shoes found in the market is varied and vast, be it canvas shoes, sneakers, or leather sandal, sports shoes, or cotton machines. The boots worn by famous mountaineer Bichendri Pal for her expedition to Mount Everest were also made in Agra. The items have good demand in the Middle East and Far East also. And a survey shows that around 65% of total shoe manufacturing in India happens in Agra. Coming to our next segment, we bring you to a glimpse of Taj Mahotsav, which is a very unique and famous fair of Agra. Taj Mahotsav is an annual 10-day event at Shilpgram in Agra. This festival is being celebrated successfully since 1992 in Agra in the month of February for 10 days, from 18th February to 27th of February, organized by the Department of Tourism, Government of India. Taj Mahotsav is mainly dedicated to the promotion of countries rich in art and craft, culture, cuisine, dance, and music. The venue of this festival is Shilpgram, which is just a kilometer far from the Taj Mahal. The crafts that are displayed in the festival have immense variety, as over 400 legendary artisans from different parts of the country get an opportunity to showcase their talent. One of the major attractions of the Taj Mahotsav of Agra is the food festival, where you can get some of the oldest and the most typical delicacies from the interiors of Uttar Pradesh and rest of India, like chole bhature, Indian samosa, puri sabji, gulab jamun, Lucknowi kebab, South Indian dosa, Amritsari naan, Hyderabadi biryani, and whatnot. Throughout the Mahotsav, the visitors can experience the richness of folk, classical music, and dances from various regions of the country in the way they were being performed centuries ago. Moreover, it's got something for everyone in the family, as when the adults are busy with the arts, crafts, and cultural shows, the children too can indulge themselves in delightful food and fun fare that forwards various rides, including the splendid roller coaster or the smaller ones like merry-go-round or train rides. Being positive, I request that in coming February, come and be a part of the festivity. And I'm sure that you will go with home with feelings that will have nostalgia running in every vein of your body in the time to come. With this, we now have two short clips from the locals of Agra who have been working on the crafts from many generations. We are now going to show a small clip on the inlay art on marble. Thank you. Now it's time to get a sneak peek in the world of needlework of Zardozi.
Can we have the second video, please, Team NEGD? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, after learning about the arts and crafts of the city, I will hand over to Shravan, who will take us through the highlights of the city. Over to you, Shravan.
Agra is an amalgamation of the finest chapters of history that India beholds. The last section is all about the highlights of Agra. The slide on your screen has a glimpse of places that we will cover. We start our journey from a grand legend of Mughal era, a World UNESCO Heritage Site which creates a silhouette against the skyline of Agra, and the whole place still whispers the skirmishes of the past. A fort that was refurbished by Agra, the third Mughal emperor, in 1565, also known as Qilai-e-Akbari. The fort served as a residence of Mughal royalty. Crossing the drawbridge over the moat which surrounds the fort, we walk through Amar Singh Gate, the southern gateway which was originally known as Akbar Darwaza. We shall enter and explore the gem of the Mughal Empire. On your screen, you have the layout of the fort. Today, 2/3 of the portion of the fort is with Indian Army. We will be exploring some of the chosen pit stops within the fort. As we climb up the ramp, the first structure we see is the Naubat Khana, or the music gallery, from where the court musicians played to announce the emperor's arrival or departure, and for various state ceremonials. Once we have crossed the Naubat Khana, we see a big pillared hall, which is Diwan-e-Aam, or Hall of Public Audience. Here the emperor sat daily to give audience to his courts, to receive ambassadors, to administer justice. On the right and the left-hand side of the throne are the chambers with perforated marble windows through which the ladies of the Zehnana could view the proceedings. The last place where commoners were allowed to enter. As we walk through the small door, we enter the private chambers of the fort. As soon as we enter, we have the Anguri Bagh. The garden is a very typical specimen of Mughal gardens. It is flanked by arcades on all three sides, intended for being the Zehnana. Some believe that it was a wine garden where grape trees were planted, and on the other, some believe that it was an aromatic pleasure garden, and the name Grape Garden is derived from the wine pattern decorations. The story may vary, but the contrast of garden and structure behind makes it unique and amazing. While walking and exploring the garden, on the left-hand corner, we have Sheesh Mahal, or Palace of Glass. This was the bath of Zehnana and the place which is out of bound for visitors today. As we climb up the stair, we see a set of apartments of the Zehnana known as Khas Mahal. The place has an indescribable charm and grace to which the beauty of the material, the perfect taste of ornament, the elegance of proportions, along with the delightful background of the landscape all contribute. From here, we can walk into the adjacent structure, which is Samman Burj or Jasmine Tower, the beautiful two-storied pavilion surmounting one of the circular bastions on the river face. It is the same place which gives us the full view of the famous monument that Shah Jahan had raised in the memory of Mumtaz Mahal and where he died. His demise can be described in few lines. The faithful Jahanara, who shared his captivity for 7 years, attended him on his deathbed. As the shades of the night closed in and hid the Taj from the view, praying divine forgiveness for his sins and a few consoling words to his daughter, he went to join his beloved. A doorway leads us to the floor above Samman Burj, leading to an open terrace. The most fascinating structure that we see here is Diwan-e Khas. It was built in 1637 and it was the hall of private audience where the emperor met and discussed the matters of the empires with nobles, ministers, and other important dignitaries. On the same terrace, in front of Diwan-e Khas, are placed two thrones, one of white marble on the side facing Machi Bhavan, and the other black slate on the riverside. From the Persian inscriptions which run around the four sides of a black throne, we learn that it was made in 1603 for Prince Salim. Moving forward with our exploration, on the side of the same terrace directly opposite to Diwan-e Khas are the baths or the hammam. Right next to hammam, there is a balcony and an open court which was in the medieval times adorned with marble tanks and fountains in which gold and silver fish were kept which provided amusement for the emperor. This is what we know as Machi Bhavan or Fish Palace. As we start walking out, there is a gem that is awaiting to be explored. A simple yet beautiful white marble structure built by Shah Jahan for the ladies of harem known as Nagina Masjid today. Once we step down from the staircase, we reach Diwan-e-Am, and right outside the hall of public audience, we have a European grave that belongs to John Russell Colvin, a British servant who served as the Lieutenant Governor of British India's northwest frontier provinces in 1850s. 4 years after Colvin was appointed to the post, mutiny erupted in India. In 1857, at the height of rebellion, Colvin died at the age of 50. Now, we are at the last leg of the walk. We are heading towards Jahangiri Mahal. Before we enter the palace, we have Jahangir's bath or horse. It is carved out of a single stone. There is a long Persian inscription running on the outer rim, which tells us that it was built for Jahangir. We now enter Jahangiri Mahal. The palace is in many respects the most remarkable building of its class in India. It was built by Akbar and later it was used as a Zehnana under the reign of Jahangir. A fascinating story that revolves around the fort is about the celebration of Christmas by Akbar and Jahangir. A late author, Thomas Smith, describes Agra of Mughal times as the most magnificent city in the East. Europeans who visited the place were struck by the glamour of its street, the richness of its merchandise, and the beauty of palaces that strung river Jamuna like necklace. The same author goes on to write that it was a cosmopolis of Italian dwellers, Portuguese and Dutch shipowners, French travelers, traders, and artisans from Central Asia and Iran, scholars from Middle East that visited Agra. With such an influx of foreigners, Christmas was a grand affair in those days. Both Akbar and Jahangir celebrated the festival and partook the traditional dinner at Agra Fort. Akbar used to come to the church with his nobles to see the representation of cave in which Christ was born and the mountain on which good shepherds kept watch. Moving ahead in day, the next place is Fatehpur Sikri. Lying few hours away from Agra, the city is a premier example of architecture and opulence. A quaint town which was once before. Akbar was anxious for an heir. He was advised to consult a Sufi saint whose celebrated abode was in the town of Sikri. With his blessing, Akbar's wait was over and he was blessed with a son. He was named as Sultan Salim in the honor of the saint. Jahangir, who describes all of these circumstances in his memoirs, adds, "My revered father, regarding the village of Sikri, my birthplace, as fortunate to himself, made it his capital. And in the course of 14 or 15 years, the hills and desert, which abounded in the beasts of prey, became converted into a magnificent city, comprising of numerous gardens, elegant edifices and pavilions, and other beautiful attractions. After the conquest of Gujarat, the village was named as Fatehpur, the town of victory. However, the glory of Fatehpur was short-lived. Akbar held his court there for 15 years and then removed it to Agra. Some say it was on account of lack of water supply, and others believe that the saint got disturbed in his devotions by the bustle and gaieties of and declared that either he or Akbar must go. Then replied the emperor, "Let it be your servant, I pray." On the screen, you have the layout of Fatehpur Sikri. The visitors usually enter by the Agra gate, which is at the bottom of the map, concerning which an amusing story is told. One night, Akbar, attended by some of his ministers, was inspecting the ramparts near this gate when he observed a highway robbery being committed close by the walls. Turning severely to those responsible for the peace of the city, he demanded why such an outage was permitted in the very presence of emperor. The courtly replied, "It is always darkest directly under the shadow of the lamp." While we get on a bus and move towards the complex, the first structure is Naubat Khana or the music gallery, just like Agra Fort, serving the same purpose. The building housed the court musicians. As we step down and enter the complex, we see Diwane or Hall of Public Audience, which is a common feature in majority of forts. It is a hall where emperor would listen to the grievances of his subjects and administer justice for them. As we walk further inside the complex, we reach Diwane Khas or Hall of Private Audience. On the outside, it would appear to be a two-storied building, but on entering, it is seen to contain only a single vaulted chamber surrounded halfway up by a gallery. Here, the emperor would meet his courtiers and discuss matters relating to the overall empire. The farthest block of building is a curious tower called the Hiran Minar, ornamented with stone imitations of elephant tusks. According to the stories, it was built by Akbar in the memory of his favorite elephant and was also used as a shooting tower. Just behind Diwane Khas, we have Aankh Micholi or Blindsman Buff House. The structure is ornate and there is a legend that Akbar played hide and seek with the ladies of Zehnana. A very distinctive and unique structure that we observe in the courtyard is Panch Mahal, a 5-floored pillared pavilion, one of the finest buildings of the complex. It is believed that it was used by the emperor and royal ladies as a leisure pavilion. The whole building overlooked the palace Zehnana. Walking further, we see Khwabga, literally translating to dream house or the sleeping chamber for the emperor. Opposite to Akbar's apartment is a large square tank with platform in the center, approached by 4 narrow stone paths known as Anuptala, where the emperor would have enjoyed performances of music, dance, and drama, and other artistic entertainments. Akbar was a patron of arts, music, literature, and it is also known that he took a great interest in paintings as well. Abul Fazl in Aine Akbari states that His Majesty from the earliest youth has shown a great predilection for art and gives it very encouragement, as he looks upon it as a means of study and amusement. Hence, the art flourishes and many painters have obtained great reputation. The works of all painters are weekly laid before His Majesty by the darogas and the clerks. He confers rewards according to the excellence of workmanship or increases monthly salary. Much progress was made in commodities required by the painters, and the correct prices of such articles were carefully ascertained. Now, talking about Malikai Hindustan or Maryam ul Zaman, a title bestowed upon her by the emperor after the birth of Prince Salim. She was the empress of Amer, present Jaipur, and the daughter of King Bharmal. She got married to Emperor Jalaluddin Muhammad, which marked the beginning of new era for the Mughal Rajput alliance. Jodhabai Palace is one of the most aesthetically built architectural splendor in the Royal Fort complex at Fatehpur Sikri. The architectural style of which has a certain characteristic of its own. In various elements of the palace, like the decorations that resemble the temple architecture of Western India, and the entire place is highly carved out, with several motifs from Rajasthani temples like bells in chain. The whole complex consists of temple, residential complex, and Tulsi Manch. From here, we move on towards the spiritual complex. We have to take out our shoes before entering. This is the tomb of Salim Chishti at Fatehpur Sikri, which is one of the most venerated places. The whole episode of Akbar meeting with the saint is described. It was on a hill that Salim Chishti dwelt, and thither came Akbar the Great to seek his help for birth of his son and apparent heir. He came on foot, leaving his camels, elephant, and horses behind. The hermits sat with a rosary and reciting the names of Allah. The emperor's prayers were heard, and his Rajput queen bore a son, Salim, whom Akbar always called Sheku Baba after the saint. Here it is a tradition to tie bits of strings and shreds of cloth to the marble screens while you seek and hope for a wish to come true. The shrine is a part of Fatehpur, which is worthy of its founder's ideals and nobility of soul. It is one of the most magnificent of all Akbar's buildings. The historic association combined with its architectural splendor makes it one of the most impressive buildings in the world. Last but not the least is the gateway, Buland Darwaza, literally meaning the gate of magnificence. The gigantic gate Buland Darwaza is one of the architectural marvels by Akbar in Fatehpur Sikri. The doorway has on the right the following inscription: His Majesty, Kings of King, Heaven of Court, Shadow of God, Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, Emperor. He conquered the kingdom of South and Khandes in the 46th divine year. Having reached Fatehpur, he proceeded to Agra. Now it's time that we visit Itmatuddaulah tomb. Over to Gaurav.
Just a second. Hello.
Yes, Gaurav, you're audible.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
So now we have reached at Itmatuddaulah, popularly known as Baby Taj Mahal or Mini Taj Mahal. But I personally don't prefer to call it as Baby Taj because it was built before the Taj Mahal, and baby cannot come before parent. So it's always a difficult question to ask what came first, chicken or an egg. So it is better that we say it is Mini Taj as its actual name Itmatuddaulah. It is said Mini Taj Mahal because of its size. It looks very similar to the Taj Mahal, but is smaller in size comparatively. Now, why this monument was built, when it was built, and by whom? To understand all this, I would like to narrate a very small story of a girl and her journey from the rags to riches through which we will be able to understand about this monument in a better way. There was a wealthy family from Iran of Mirza Ghias Beg and his wife Asmatul Nisa Begum. They were very rich, but due to some crisis in 16th century, they became poor and decided to migrate with many others to India, where Akbar was ruling. On the way to Agra, Asmatul Nisa Begum gave birth to a baby girl. Passing through a desert in a heavy windstorm, they lost the baby. There was a merchant who was also coming on the same route, saw a girl lying in the bushes. He picked her up and returned the baby to the couple. They became very close friends. On reaching Agra, this merchant got a job in the court of Akbar as he knew Akbar from before. He used to provide Iranian horses to Akbar. On his recommendation, Mirza Ghias Beg also got a job in Akbar's court. They became very, very good friends. Years passed and the little girl turned into a young, beautiful lady. And Prince Jahangir saw her once in the court and fell in love with her and wanted to marry her. But when Akbar got to know about this, he did not like the match and ordered his general to marry her and took her to another part of the country. At this time, Jahangir could not do anything. But after Akbar's death, Jahangir became an emperor and he still had that lady in his mind. Stories believe that soon the general was killed and the lady was brought to Agra to get married with Jahangir. Initially, she was not ready to marry him, but later she agreed and requested him to fulfill her two wishes. First, to give very high post to her family members in the court, on which Jahangir gave the post of finance minister to her father and prime minister to her brother. And second wish was to allow her to sit with the emperor when he takes the royal decisions. And as he promised, he fulfilled both of her wishes. So in this way, she became an empress of the Mughal dynasty. So this was a story of this girl and her journey from rags to riches, from the bushes where she was about to die and to the throne. The same lady built this beautiful mausoleum for her parents and for her family members. Her name was Perunisa. Yes, she was none other than Noor Jahan. This took 6 years to complete from 1622 to 1628 with white marble and the red sandstone, an exclusive use of inlay of semi-precious stones. And just after 3 years of completing of this monument, Shah Jahan had to start the construction of Taj Mahal in 1631 after the sudden demise of his beloved Mumtaz. It is said that all the workers who worked on this monument later worked on the Taj Mahal. So it's easy to say that Shah Jahan was inspired from this monument to build the Taj Mahal. Now over to Shravan for the final leg of our journey in Agra.
Up ahead on this journey, we have the final resting place of Akbar, Sikandar, a grandiose complex famous for being the home of Tomb of Akbar. Akbar died in fort at Agra on October 13, 1605, in the 51st year of his reign, 863. The story of the emperor started in Amarkot, but came to an end in Agra. The mausoleum was completed by Emperor Jahangir in the 17th year of his reign, or 1630. The work of the mausoleum was commenced by Akbar himself. It is in different plan from any other Mughal monument. The original structure was somewhat modified by Jahangir. He stated in his memoirs that on his first visit to the tomb after his succession, he was thoroughly dissatisfied with the work which had been done and ordered certain parts to be rebuilt. An exquisite structure, ornately carved, is a monument of elegance. A unique aspect of this monument is that the main graves of the emperor is accessible and can be visited by tourists or visitors. The next stop is Kaj Mahal or Glass Palace, named after the abundance of tile decoration. It has extremely elaborate ornamentation, inlaid work, and enameled tiles. Now, we have reached a final destination in the highlights of Agra segment. Iconic, beautiful, mesmerizing. Words can never be enough to describe the beauty of this landmark. For centuries, the marvelous structure has captivated people, and I think everyone who has joined us today for this webinar has also been hearing about the very famous Taj Mahal, which is one of the wonders of the world since childhood. People who haven't visited Taj Mahal have the desire to visit it once in their lifetime, and others who have would want to cherish their memories with Magnus Opus Taj Mahal. The symbol of eternal love of Shah Jahan and Mumtaz, the structure is on a bucket list of many visitors and tourists. With these stories and memories of Agra, which have their fame spread across, I I hope that you have enjoyed this webinar, and over to Dr. Roy.
Thank you, everyone. I mean, I must mention that in these unprecedented times, a city's living heritage is most likely to be sustainable through tourism that brings greater benefits to the people and, of course, the community, which has been upholding the stride for so long. We are extremely thankful to Dekho Apna Desh initiative, where the webinars are a great way to showcase India to the people and to show it to the others. India City Walks, like always we mention, is a 3-time national award-winning organization brand with Hall of Fame on its stride. We nurture heritage, culture, art experiences, sightseeing programs, activities, events, and other initiatives through our flagships. Passion and respect for culture and heritage is integral to the way India City Walks and other flagships conduct its heritage experiences. We offer India discovery opportunities to the new age through immersive and experiential products in the new and transformed world. With the initiative India City Walks Festival and SOCH, which stands for Save Our Cultural Heritage Foundation, our intent is to create valuable outcomes for tourism sector by creating employment and engagement opportunities with environmentally conscious consumers. Our aim is further to strengthen the tourism delivery by involving more and more locals to showcase the city's distinctive offerings. The impact is created by shaping sustainable ecosystem and in heritage and tourism. We look forward to contributing to foster a strong sense of community, local pride, national pride, and cultural identity with many more informative webinars and interactions. Thank you once again for joining us for India City Walks Festival and our other initiatives. We are looking for more and more people who are passionate about their rich cultural heritage and believe in taking the traveler on an immersive journey. India has a diverse regional distinction and destinations which have historic past and cultural legacy. All you need to do is just register yourself and present your city with passion. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, ADG ma'am. And over to you for the screen space now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Team India City Walk, Shomi, Nidhi, Shravan, and Gaurav. What a wonderful presentation. And I'm from the city of Agra. I never knew there is so much beyond the monuments in Agra. Just tell me, there is a question coming from viewers, like you showed so many facets of the city. If one want to cover all this, how much time one needs for Agra?
I think Gaurav is the right person to answer that. Usually I would say 3 days, but Gaurav, you tell me, how many days should one stay? You're on mute, Gaurav.
Yeah, ma'am. At least, 2 days minimum and 3 days would be very sufficient if we need to explore each and every place what we have shown today. Because there are even more places that we could not cover because of the lack of time. But if you are in Agra for 3 days, then yes, you can cover most of the part of this place.
One more question comes about Agra is generally it has come as a day destination. People go in the morning from Delhi, see these sites and come back in the evening. One of the reason people say is nothing much to do in evening. So what do you suggest for people who plan to be there for 3 days? So what they need to do there?
I mean, Agra now, that's true, ma'am. Still not many options are there for the night, but now there is a cultural show which takes place in the evening, Kalakriti shows, which actually tells you about the whole history of Mughals and about the Taj Mahal. Other than that, there are markets which are also open, like Sadar Bazaar for the full night, like till 11 or 12 o'clock, when can stroll around and do some shopping of the local crafts. There are restaurants which has lots of rooftop cafes where one can enjoy the music with a beautiful Indian cuisine and local cuisines of Agra. So there are options which one can always, take benefits and can enjoy the nightlife also.
Okay, one more question that we are getting from the viewers is about the monuments. Are all monuments open post COVID scenario? And how one go for, are there any restrictions? How people need to book it? And there is another question coming from a viewer, are people allowed to go into the lawns in front of Taj or other monuments? So if Gaurav, you can tell us about that.
Yes, ma'am. All the monuments are open after the COVID now, but the restriction is there and all the tickets which are sold are online only. So one cannot buy the tickets at the moment from the counters, but one has to book the tickets in advance online. And yes, there are restrictions. For example, for Taj Mahal, in one day, maximum 5,000 people can visit, and it is on in 2 slots from 6 morning till noon, 2,500, and then 12 noon to 6 p.m. for 2,500. So altogether. For other monuments is different, like for Fatehpur Sikri and Agra Fort is 2,600 per day, and similar like in other monuments. So it's always better that if you book the tickets in advance. Regarding that if one can visit in the garden of the Taj Mahal, I think the one which is barricaded, we cannot enter in the garden like we could not even before and now also. But yes, the passage which were open before, like as earlier, it is all open now. So nothing restricted. So I request that you must come now.
Okay, one more thing. Is there any relation between Bibi Ka Maqbara and that Black Taj Mahal? Because there's another question for the viewer.
Bibi Ka Maqbara, I think it's in Aurangabad, which was built by Aurangzeb, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
it is, see, there is no Black Taj Mahal as such. It's just the legends of stories that believe that Shah Jahan wanted to be erected for himself, but there is nothing, no proof so far. But yes, like Itmatu Daula, which is called Baby Taj Mahal, it was built much before during the time of Jahangir. And Taj Mahal was built during the time of Shah Jahan, and Bibi Ka Maqbara, which is in Aurangabad, is built during the time of Aurangzeb. So they're like, you know, that in the architecture, in the shape and design, it is very much similar, but these are all in different years were built.
Yes, and if I can add to it, because I'm from Aurangabad, that, you know, Bibi Ka Maqbara is another grandeur, marvelous monument. And all these monuments, not just their architecture, but the stories is what makes them alive and real. And the stories are absolutely different and beautiful in themselves. So yes, you know, while these monuments look alike, they have marble being used and other, you know, stone architectures and other things. But the stories is what makes them distinctive and absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Nidhi. That was a wonderful insight. So I think with this, we come towards the end of this another wonderful session on under Dekho Apna Desh. Today it was our 66th webinar, and we are going strong. And thank you, Nidhi and team, because you were the one with whom we started our first webinar, which was on Delhi, and it's been a fantastic journey. So with this, I'll just convey my thanks to all of you. And viewers, we'll see you next week, same time, same place. And then we'll travel to some another beautiful part of our beautiful country. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so
Sunny.
much. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.